Welcome back to Unhoused and Unfiltered. I'm Nick Cook, the Director of Public Policy for the Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness, joined as always with my dear colleague,
Sarah Rennie, Director of Advocacy Engagement, Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness.
Episode 8, Sarah. We've made it to Episode 8. We have not been canceled.
That's right.
Really
We're not in
impressed.
trouble. We even broke the top 100 for Apple Podcasts. I am super excited about this, and I think it really shows, people want to know what's going on, and they know it's more than what they're hearing.
Exactly. It's funny that you say that because I've been approached by multiple people that have heard us on the podcast, but then also a member of the state legislature reached out and said, "Hey, I don't really understand what's going on with this homeless stuff. Could we set up a meeting?" And so, again, it's just great to get the message out there, talk about what we're seeing in the communities, talk about what's going on. But the only way we can do this is if you like and subscribe to our podcast, join Micah, click become a member. That allows Sarah and I to do this podcast every week.
Yes, thank you. And for all of those who already who've given us good reviews, we can't thank you enough. We really exist on, because we're a nonprofit, we exist on your support. And so if you can donate, or even, the free option, which is just like and subscribe and share with your friends, it's really important we get this message out.
Right. I mean, every week I keep looking to see if we have more subscribers, and every week we do. It's kind of fun,
No, it's a little addicting actually, but yeah.
But today we have such a great topic to talk about. One of the fastest growing populations we see in the unhoused community is our youth. Particularly in the LGBTQ community, persons of color, and then those aging out of foster care. Last year, we even saw a 3% increase in youth homelessness, and we expect that to continue to trend up until we can actually get a grasp of that and put in things into policy. And I know 2 podcasts ago, I bashed the
Yeah, what's this we?
the executive budget recommendation, but the one silver lining that I did highlight in that is they called out housing choice vouchers for those aging out of foster care. So again, across the board, we are seeing a increase in youth homelessness, and it is scary, Sarah.
Yeah, and it's really good that across the aisle, folks are starting to understand that we put kids in foster care, we sort of leave them there and then we release them to shelters. We don't give them a lot of life skills. And so they've got all this trauma of whatever happened, and then leaving their home family, and then we take responsibility for them, and then we leave them as adults. But that's not the only story. Essentially, our whole economic system's leaving young people behind. You can't do, like I said in my very first podcast, you couldn't do what I did as a young person, which is sort of live paycheck to paycheck and pay for college without getting into a ton of debt. People 18-24 can't afford housing, let alone, college, or there's not good jobs. Costs of living are expensive. As I mentioned, my son pays half of his income in rent, and the only reason he can navigate that is because he's single and doesn't have a car. So we need to take responsibility of what we're leaving to these young folks. We've broken the economic system, in addition to all the other issues, and we have a responsibility to make sure folks aren't left homeless, living in their car, doubled up in someone's house, that they have a future, because the economic system is simply not working for most of our youth.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's why I'm so excited about our guest today. Our guest today has both direct experience as a young person who has experienced homelessness, and she's becoming a leader in raising awareness for youth homelessness. Azaria is a youth advocate and an expert who currently serves on the Regional Youth Advisory Board for several continuums of care. She also served as president of the Detroit Phoenix Center's Youth Action Board, a group of young people with lived expertise of homelessness, for the last 2 to 3 years. She has dedicated her time and effort to help other people navigate the homeless service delivery system, which you and I have for talk about how complicated it is. That one person's experience is one person's experience. And so for people like Azaria to come in and do that is just amazing. She has spent over 500 hours of community volunteer service, including attending and facilitating community events, being a youth speaker and advocate, and handing out resources to those in need. She is a recognized leader in Michigan on addressing youth homelessness, and I am so excited to be with her. I just want to do a shout out that I sat with her at the Micah's 35th anniversary dinner, and she was just a wonderful young woman to sit with. She's bright. I'm so excited that we have her here today.
Yeah. Hey, Azaria, welcome. My grandma used to say to, find the people that make you feel like sunshine. And Azaria is one of those people that we are just grateful to be doing this work. So I'm hoping, Azaria, you can tell us a little bit about yourself and, what brought you to this work.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Nick. I'm so grateful to be here as always. Um, yeah, a little bit about how I got into the work to begin with kind of starts from my lived experience. I was somebody who grew up with housing insecurity. There were some days or months or weeks, without hot water or food or having to wash clothes in the tub or, just some challenges and barriers that made life a little hard growing up. As I started entering closer to my teenage years, I just got out of foster care for the second time. My father found the Detroit Phoenix Center. At the time, he thought it was an all-girls program for like after-school tutoring. He was like, "Oh, this will be perfect for you, something to do after school." It was not an like girls program. They definitely service everybody. But they definitely gave me the resources and supports I needed to kind of get out of the situation I was in at the moment, which was just needing some supports for high school and like I guess growing up a little bit. Um, Closer to like adulthood, they offered me a job on their youth action board. And it was the first opportunity for me to ever do anything for my community, get involved in volunteer work. It was just a whole new ballpark. A year or two into it, I was offered the job as president. This also just helped me elevate myself, I think, in leadership roles, also just getting to like work with more young people and really just like dive into the community and really it's not always so focused on the challenges in the community, but really uplifting the successes. So the young people we did get to see come out of their bad situations, the families we gave resources to, the events we threw to see people come out and be happy. Over the years, I think it's just been a little bit of everything, but I do think my lived experience plays a big part into why I got into this work and why I continue to do this work.
I love that. I love that we're focusing on people as people and we're celebrating who they are and their strengths and their successes, rather focusing on whatever happened to them, because what happened to them is not who they are. And I want to talk a little bit more about that, but to the extent you're comfortable, you sounds like you're one of those youth impacted by the foster care system. Can you talk a little bit about how that impacted your life and why we're seeing so many kids aging out of foster care? It's almost half that end up homeless.
Yeah, I've been in foster care twice. The first was when I was much younger. I think I was about like 5 years old. So I don't remember much about that process. The second time I went in, I was closer to 12 years old. This time I would only spend about 14 months in the system, but I did go into the system with like five other siblings who varied in ages, with the oldest being closer to if I was 12, she's 5 years, 17. And then my older brothers were kind of in their teenage age. And so one of the things that I noticed when I was in the system was firstly how things were ran. I was 12 years old and my older brothers are just a year older than me. But I was immediately chosen to be placed in a foster home while they were placed in a facility. And the reason being that many people told us was that nobody was going to want to take in teenage boys or anything older. And
Oh, that's so
so
hard.
it was really hard. And it was kind of crazy because I'm like, they're only a year older than me. Like, technically, you shouldn't want to take me either. Like, and so during those whole 14 months, while I did get a really nice foster mom who did treat me really nicely, they dealt with a significant amount of issues in their foster facility, from fights every day to staff treating them like they're prisoners and not young people in need of supports. And it was even the process after leaving the system that's kind of really difficult because now you're trying to, re-enter society and, re-get your life back. And if you have no support systems, it's you're gonna kind of feel like your only option is to go back into the system and however that looks, whether that be the foster care or jail system or some type of way that you will get some support because even in the facilities, you do get fed and everything. And so some young people, I feel like they feel like that's their only option if they are not able to find other housing options. And it's not. It's not. They just want you to think that they're like conditioning the minds to think like without us, there's just a whole world out there that doesn't care about you. And it's not the truth. It's not reality.
So it sounds like we put these young kids in facilities, which are not homes, right? And we're not giving them support and care and celebrating who they are. We're treating them like uh, boxes to be checked. In at the best case scenario, in the worst case scenario, there's a lot of abuse and sort of mismanagement around some of that experience. And I think that's a really important thing to highlight because it's certainly not your brother's fault that they were in care. And we just have to do a better job, I think, for folks that where we stand. If we're going to choose to take people away from their family for whatever reason, and there might have been good reasons, there might have been bad reasons, because it's hard to know. Um, we have to take responsibility. So it sounds like for your experience at the Phoenix Center, really gave you a sense of how you wanted to sort of pay that forward or work to make things better. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you think needs to change and how they can help?
Yeah, the Detroit Fitness Center, I think is one of those organizations that we need more of because they really show you like on every level, they are dedicated to their mission, which is to service youth and, provide those resources. And so I had the pleasure and the great opportunity to be able to be involved in every level of their program. So when I first joined, I was in their after school SOAR program, which is for I think 13 and down or like 16 and down. And that's mostly for like after school programming. You can come up to their old drop-in center, and play games, get food, get resources on certain days. We did certain activities like reading and stuff like that. As I got a little older, I got to join their summer leadership program, which was like a summer job, like GDYT type of situation to really grow your leadership skills. And then again, I joined their youth action board, which was, for a little bit older adults with lived experience, but a really good opportunity to get involved in your community, advocate, get some leadership skills, grow some life skills. And then now I currently serve as an employee as a youth fellow for their mobile unit. And so I think it's the dedication not only to their mission, but to people like me to constantly trying to help a young person through their life in every way possible, and just be with them through that. And I think what a lot of organizations could pick up from DPC is that when you work with young people, I don't know why people expect it to be easy. I think people expect like, oh, this young person missed their lift, and this young person is replying to they're young people. They probably don't even remember what they ate for breakfast or to floss. So, these things are not going to come naturally easy, and there's definitely going to be challenges. But it's up to adult partners, organizations who service these young people or service people in general to really, and we always say, well, me and my friends always say in this work, if you don't have a heart for it, you're not going to want to do it because it's going to get tough. And sometimes you have to realize that the challenges you're going through, like for myself, I'm currently going through challenges sometimes. It's not putting them to the side, but it's realizing that there are so many people out there that need help, and you can be a big service to them by committing to a mission that you set up to do. And so, yeah,
I
I
think
just think
that's
DPC just does a lot.
I think that's amazing. And I think you're a good antidote to what we're hearing is like nothing can be done. This thing that, just keeps going on. And you are showing that like their complete program has made a huge change in lots of young folks' lives, right? You can change trajectories for folks by investing in them and celebrating them rather than treating them like something else or someone else who, we don't know why you're here or you're just not like us. And I think that's amazing. I learned a word from you though that I had never heard before, and I think it really made me sit with because like I got three kids, so I tend to be way more maternal than I should be because you're all grown, right? And I still parent my 20s somethings. But you said a word, it's adultification, about how this homeless system sort of affects um treats young folks, and I keep saying kids, but I mean young folks. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that means for people like Nick and I who probably are doing it but don't mean to,
Yeah.
and way we can improve, our work?
So adultism, that
Adultism,
is,
not adultification.
you're
That's a
totally
whole different
fine.
word.
You're totally fine. What's so hilarious to me, you guys, a little bit is that Um, I recently started like saying adultism a lot more in this work, like since I've been in like COC systems work or anything like that. And it's kind of been a little funny to me, like how many adults have come up to me and been like, I have never heard that word before. Can you please let me know if I'm doing this to you? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I definitely would. And I think that's the first step to knowing that like you're working with somebody who's truly trying to be like make a positive impact because like the first response is like, have I ever done this to you? Like, is this something you see me done and you need me to stop? And so, for those who may not know the word, adultism is kind of the act of adult partners making young people feel lesser than, telling them their experience doesn't matter, their knowledge doesn't matter, you're not old enough to have certain opinions or thoughts on things, so it's using this idea that a young person's age is stopping them from being in the same rooms or at the same tables as adult partners. And it can look, and it mostly comes from a lot of biases and stigmas that adults have around young people that, young people are lazy. Oh, I think I know what's best for this young person, or, I don't even need to consult with them because it's like, and I think for me, in my opinion, there's no facts to this. In my opinion, a lot of that stems from the household of parents telling their kids, no, I make the rules, I make the decisions. I don't need to consult you, I pay these bills, and so and it grows out of the home into school. Teachers don't consult their students on what they want to do for a field trip, what they want to do to engage better, how they would want these things to look. And then if it happens in the homes and it happens in the schools, it's definitely happening in the systems, but at a way worser level because now you're dealing with young people who are actively dealing with homelessness or PTSD or trauma or abuse. And if you're not trained on how to talk to them, then you're not going to build a connection with them. And so I hear so many people coming to me and they're saying, "Oh, how do I connect with young people? We're not getting young people enough. Have you tried talking to a
Talking
young
to them.
person?
Well,
Did
eh,
we try that first step of talking to one young person? And that do you have a young person on your leadership team who's helping you to navigate that crowd?" And so I think for me, the easiest step most adult partners could take when trying to stop adultism, talk to the youth. Just sit down and have a conversation. And I promise you, I feel like a lot of that will get cleared up.
well, I think it's to me you brought up a good point when you're talking about yourself and your brothers that were 1 year older being put into a group home, that they were almost kind of forced to be grown-ups. They weren't seen as kids. Yet then on the other side, when you come out of it, they want you to be children. We're going to tell you what to do. We're going to tell you. So, it's very, very eye-opening. It is to me the way you kind of laid that out is, they do have experience. They do have thoughts. Reach out to them.
And it's their life and it's their trauma, and we their folks need to be engaged at every level if we believe, if we believe that people should be treated with dignity and respect. I will say, and I won't speak for Nick, there's also an element of like, as a Gen Xer, we don't really understand your experience in the same way. And so, but we grew up with like, our parents walked a mile uphill in the snow. And so we also have a responsibility. And, you heard our own parents talking to us about, you don't know what it was like. You don't have it rough. And I think it's important that we really sit with it and like break that cycle of like, our experiences, or at least my experience, maybe Nick could be much younger. I don't know. of what happened in graduating in 1991 is not your experience. Like it's so radically different. Um, in a way that I don't think other generations even experienced, given how much the world has changed, how much more connected everyone is, um, for both good and bad, right? And that's only one part of it. So I would love to hear how that plays out, that generation gap, for you as you try to do this work.
Yeah, and so one thing I actually did want to name is that when I am having these conversations around adultism and kind of like the impact it can have on young people, one of the things I love to name is ageism, which is the exact same thing as adultism, but young people do it to older folks. And so this is young people automatically having biases. Oh, that older person doesn't know what they're talking about. That's somebody's grandma. I'm not listening to this. Like you don't know what you're talking about. And it's vice versa, okay? Both of these are negatively impacting any relationship building going on between older people and younger people right now. And it's because nobody is willing to understand the other side. Younger people aren't willing to listen to older folks because they think there's already a disconnect. And then older folks are sometimes not willing to listen to younger people because of their experience. They just think that because they are older, because like you said, because of some of their own lived experience, they feel like they already have this knowledge to lead and guide a young person. And so it's actually funny that like one of the questions I think yeah, we're talking about the other day is like, what's the difference between guidance, mentorship, and adultism? Because young adults can try to guide or mentor young people, but when you start trying to make decisions for their life without consulting them, then it's closer to adultism because now you've stopped listening to their thoughts, their feedback, or anything that they have to say. Um,
That's really
and I think,
interesting
yeah, no,
because
because I work with a lot of adult partners, and I just think it's like it's this weird gap between us.
that's sort of what we're trying to do with all homelessness is a weird parentification. We're kind of telling them what folks who are in homelessness or poor, what they've done wrong, what they should do better. And it's interesting that that's even worse. And I guess it makes sense. Adultism or ageism is even worse. It's just because we're constantly saying, well, that homeless person shouldn't, you know, should use that $12 he got to do X, Y, and Z. Where really what we need to do is be able to like sort of listen to why he needed that $12. And I think that's an excellent through line back to sort of your experiences as a youth homeless advocate. What are what needs to change? What are youth homeless facing? Sort of, I know in economics is a huge piece. What do you think? What's your experience? Because I think most people who aren't working like three jobs trying to make rent, it's hard to understand. Can you sort of help folks understand what it's like to be a young person trying to make it without family support?
Oh, I can, and it's actually so hilarious because I am involved in quite a bit of work in the homeless response system right now. I mean, in just several spaces where I get to have the opportunity to play a role in something bigger than myself in my community, in my city. Through this all, for the last 3 years, I have been couch surfing, hopping house to house. My father lost his house a little bit like 2 years ago in April.
So for our
Thankfully,
listeners, what's couch surfing mean to
couch
folks?
surfing is, a definition of homelessness. So it means you're hopping from house to house. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be sleeping on a couch, but it
Right.
means like, oh, I stayed at my friend's house for 2 weeks and then I jumped and I like the next 2 weeks I was at my sister's house. And so now you're just essentially you're couch surfing, okay? And that is a form of homelessness, which also a big thing I don't think a lot of like I think it needs to be realized is that a lot of young people do not know they're experiencing homelessness. They don't know that if they've been living in their house without heat or water for 2 months, that's a form of homelessness.
Right. It's
If
a
you have an unlivable condition in your home, like infestation or mold, that's a form of homelessness. These are all things that can impact like our shape of homelessness, but they don't know. Young people are not even, I didn't know. I didn't know until DPC told me at 15, like, hey, you might have experienced some housing insecurity and some lived experience of homelessness.
And for
And
our
so
listeners, I'm just
that
going
was
to
a
say
wake
the
up
HUD
call.
defines that. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah,
The HUD
no, you're good.
defines that as people living in a place unfit for human habitation is a type of homelessness. And I do think lots of folks don't realize because they're like, well, I wasn't literally sleeping on the ground, right? It's like, well, you were sleeping somewhere without heat in December and there were cockroaches everywhere. That is homeless.
Hmm. Yeah. And so I think even getting more young people to get this definition or get this knowledge is one way like of knowing. But really, oh, and that's another thing I was trying to tell, like I was literally having this conversation with like a coworker the other day about like, because I heard somebody say to me recently, like, oh, Gen Z is like the only generation that's never succeeded the last. Like they're the only ones who've never evolved past the last generation, which I already don't believe. But I tried to tell this person, I'm like, when you're working with a young person or dealing with a young person in today's age, I really just really want you to think about yourself at their age right now. And you're dealing with whatever's happening
Oh, yeah.
politically, economically, gas being $5. You never once in history had gas at $5. So let's just open our minds to kind of what young people are actually dealing with and like how it's going to affect their mental health of trying to just go day by day. So me currently, I'm currently working through housing problems. I'm living with my brother, trying to find my own apartment, trying to figure out do jobs, trying to get all my socials while still working, while still doing a job that makes like and has me very involved in the community. I'm still going through plenty of housing issues of trying to build my life skills, of leadership skills and everything. But it's
But
not
still not
easy.
having a stable place to sleep,
And it's not
which,
easy
and I
because
don't
when
want
you
to,
don't have somewhere stable, that's all you're constantly thinking about. It's like, I want my own place to sleep. I want to have somewhere where I know I'm okay. And
absolutely.
it's tough. It's just tough.
And I think you're, forgive me for saying this, but you're a good example of like you've done everything right. You've got all your ducks in a row, and it's still a struggle to get, first and last month's rent, get into somewhere, and you're doing an amazing job. And we just don't provide. People ask me like, why is the homeless situation getting better or getting not getting better? It's like, well, prices are insane, housing is insane, and we're not providing any real supports for youth. And so, of course, we've got an increase in youth homelessness. And one, I want to stay on the fact that the Phoenix Center still did an amazing job, right? And they still did a good job. That doesn't change that. It's just you deserve also a home and a place to sleep that's yours. And I'm very sorry that our economic situation is such that it's just not happening.
I'm sorry for everybody because I actually don't know how to drive, so the gas prices technically aren't affecting me, but it definitely does. Like I catch Ubers a lot because I don't know how to drive, and now Ubers are so expensive because gas has
Right.
skyrocketed. And
And then
even if I want to ask a friend, so
food gets more expensive because it's more expensive to
yeah.
transport.
Yeah,
So, how can
I think,
people help?
yeah.
Um, I feel like people could just be so much more involved with their young people. Like even right now in Detroit, there's stuff called like teen takeovers where you have like large groups of young, it's not just Detroit, but there's just large groups of young people taking over cities because they feel like there's nothing for them to do. There's nowhere for them to be. There's nothing for, schools are shutting down. They're shutting down recreational centers. They're closing the parks. The young people don't feel safe anywhere. They don't feel welcomed anywhere. And so they do what they're doing now. They get in large groups and they do whatever they want. And I, one of the main things I've been telling people to combat this is maybe make spaces more inclusive to young people. Maybe ask them, what is it you would want to see that would make you feel more included, more safe, more involved? At if you're an organization or program servicing young people, you need to have a young person at your leadership table who's
That
helping you
sounds
make those
key.
decisions. If you're a big time funder and you're wanting to, give funds to a city or an organization or a community, that community needs to be reaching out to young people, especially if any of those funds have anything to do with young people. Just start with conversations, honest, genuine conversations, and actually listen to that young person, actually listen to things that they're saying, their lived experience, and let them know that, like, this is a safe space for you to feel like whatever you need to get off your chest, you can, even if it's about me. And I think that's the hardest part adult partners have is that they don't want, like, they're all good to hear the negatives until it's,
Oh, sure.
about them. And then they're just kind of like, wait a minute now. And it's like, no, like like, this is something you need to talk about. And so, if I can encourage everybody anything, like just talk to your young people. I promise you, I think that would just clear up a lot.
Nick, do you have anything you want to?
You've brought up so many great points today, Azaria, and I really appreciate your insights into this. And we know what your experience has been with homelessness. What is one thing you want to leave with the listeners on what you're seeing now at the youth advocacy boards and those that you're seeing across the COCs that you work with? What is the one thing you want them to know about the youth that you're seeing that are homeless?
Um, that it's not getting easier. It's actually getting a little harder to breathe these days because we're told not to we're told to really educate ourselves on what's happening politically and locally and to vote and to do this and to do that and to hire our education and to get a job. And again, like I said earlier, it's just kind of hard at the end of the day when you do not have a safe space to sleep. It's just kind of difficult. I do want like those experiencing any type of housing insecurity or homelessness to know that there are youth groups out there, youth action councils, youth action boards that are passionately advocating for every resource and support to go to young people. We do not stop. And it is because, like I tell people all the time, I advocate so hard and I do what I do so hard because I want to help people just like me. These programs, I'm helping them PSH and transitional housing and FAP and DCTs. I want this for myself. I probably can't get it. So I will make sure another young person does get it. So yeah, youth homelessness is not easy. And it's homelessness at all isn't easy, but can you just imagine doing it if you were like 18 and you didn't have anything? It's terrible.
It's
Um,
terrifying. I am so
it's
sorry.
terrifying actually. So yeah,
Yeah,
not
I'd be
easy at all.
scared. I'd be scared all the time. Well, thank you for your time today. We appreciate everything you're doing. You give our work, you give us light to be able to hold on to that we are going to continue to work on this. We're going to continue to advocate, and we really appreciate you.
I appreciate both of you. Sarah, I love working with you always. Nick, it's been fantastic to see you again. I hope you both just have a wonderful day. I'm just grateful that to be invited.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Azaria.
Thank you.
Wow.
I was just amazed, Sarah, by some of the things that Azaria brought up, and just I hadn't thought about adultism. Um,
No, no, I don't think we ever do. I think that's the point, right? Like,
yeah,
and I get in mom mode and I'm like, oh, wait, these are grown folks. But the other thing is that to have such passion for making the world a better place with everything that she's had to face and that she's seen, I mean, it's really an inspiring and remarkable space to be in. And it's why we have to remember to like keep from being jaded, to make sure that we're helping kids, young folks like Azaria, and making sure we find programs that will support her.
and I think one of the other great things that she brought up right at the end is the there's no room to breathe.
Yeah,
Things
that
are.
was really evocative, right?
Yeah, you look at the rising cost of higher education. You look at the rising cost of rent. You look at the rising cost of food, and all these things make it that much tougher to step out of poverty on your own without assistance, without somebody like Azaria who's been there is helping you guide your way through this. And it just that really struck me as something I hadn't really thought of in that term until she said it.
When I think about the physicality of it all too, like I get tired and I want to sit in my soft pants and watch some TV and I don't want to talk to anyone else. And if you're sharing space and you don't have anywhere stable, there's never any real rest. So you're physically dealing with that. And then you're physically trying to navigate all these other job demands and education. And you and I have talked like the number of acronyms that go on in the housing folks. It's remarkably it's a remarkable number of barriers we put in people's way. And now we're adding like this Medicaid and food stamp forms that we're all going to have to fill out, and people are going to be like, why didn't they fill in their forms if they wanted their Medicaid? It's like, well, because they're doing 12 other things and they're not getting any rest, and it's one more thing. If I can tell you how many times I've forgotten my daughter's permission slip and I am not in that situation, let alone something, like the number of forms that you have to do for Medicaid.
Well, and that, again, when Azaria was talking about, she didn't see herself as homeless when she was couch surfing, and she knows a lot of other youth don't see themselves as homeless. Again, going back to that Medicaid redetermination every 6 months, is that going to happen? Do they know where their address is? Did they have their mail forwarded to their brother's house and then a falling out happened, or the brother was housing insecure and then they lost that apartment, and now everything's lost in the fold? And I really see this as, I think of my own children. I have one that just graduated college and one that just finished up her freshman year of college. And I think about all the times where they call me and say, well, what about this, Dad? What about that? Can we do this? Can we do that? And
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm at the ability where I can assist and help them make decisions. But if you have nobody moving you through that system, how hard that is.
Oh, I'll even say my son, as I've mentioned, he failed well, he chose to leave university and had run up his credit cards, a terrible credit, and he couldn't get in anywhere. I co-signed for him and helped him rehabilitate his credit. That's a huge thing that if he hadn't had that, he wouldn't have an apartment, right? He'd be couch surfing. He'd be not having somewhere to live. Like it is, if we're going to put kids in foster care, we need to make sure that we're providing community supports. So talk about and safety, because I don't know about you, but I was not a perfect citizen at 18. I didn't know everything. And we're just saying like, hey, go out and learn. And it's not that simple.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Even though I did take a traditional college path and I went to West Point, which
I was
I
gonna say
quit.
you might have been perfect at 18. I was not.
I'm far from perfect, but I was told every day what
Right.
time I had to wake up, what time I'm going to class, what time I'm eating lunch, what time I'm eating dinner, what I'm doing, when I have to have my lights out. If you don't have that structure, you don't have people helping you through that day, it makes it that much tougher. Um,
Yeah, I think the
and
transition to adulthood is really hard and even harder now.
Yes. Yeah, and the one thing I'd like to kind of bring up is, when we do these annual point in time counts, that we go out in the street and we count the individuals that are homeless and unhoused and those that are in our transition shelters. We don't capture those that are couch surfing. We don't capture those that are on the verge of losing their housing, or those that are aging out of foster care, and how when they're going to be homeless, which then overall show doesn't really add to what the true homelessness space looks like.
So I want to echo that because I think for folks don't understand, and I've always thought, and this is not the current administration, it's just HUD as a entity for however long it's been. They produce these categories and they only count people in a certain category. And it has had the effect of obscuring the reality of poverty and homelessness because of who they choose to count and who they don't. And I really think that's worth emphasizing because we're not catching through our systems youth homeless. And that is particularly problematic for youth because how do we know what they need if we're not, you know, capturing them in the data? And so when people ask me what we need to do, we need to create less division between people who are suffering in our categories and figure out more supports with less strings.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I want to talk about too is in Michigan, when is the pit count, Sarah? Do you know this answer?
I feel like it's in the middle of the worst freezing
It's
day in the every time I've gone out, it's been like 40 degrees below zero. I
it's
don't
the
know what month it is though.
it's the last 2 weeks of January,
Yeah,
and
it's insane.
if you can get to a cousin, friend, brother, family down the street, get in off the elements just to stay warm, that's what you're going to do. You're going to be couch surfing. So we woefully undercount our youth because people try to get them off the street. They do those, they take care of their family. But then summer comes around and they're like, well, it's warm now, you can go on your own. I'm not saying that's the case everywhere, but a lot of times that's what happens is you see a huge increase in youth come
Well,
summertime in Michigan.
and for our listeners, the pit count is the point in time count, which is not the best way we have, but it is how HUD chooses to count homeless. And then they send teams of folks out in the end of January to sort of count the number of people living outside. So it misses people who have called in a favor in those terrible months. A lot of women with children get missed, a lot of youth get missed. It is unfortunately what we're using to number our homeless. I've always been suspicious because, I'm always a little suspicious, and this has been going on for decades, that it's a way to avoid the reality because it's not the best way to really capture who's actually homeless.
Yeah. And that is, I think that's where the lack of funding comes in and we don't have a true understanding.
Well, and then when people say it's not getting better, it's like, well, you never had a good number to begin with, and people have been living precariously for a while, and then the economy's worse, and we all know inflation's worse and going to get worse. Of course, homelessness isn't getting better. It's an economic issue
Yeah.
and an affordable housing one.
And I just want to continue to echo that this isn't a choice that Azaria made when she was younger. This was how the system was set up. For a lot of those youth that are aging out of foster care, it's not a choice. It's not addiction that put them on the street, much to the difference of what is being put out there in media and
No, it's opportunity.
yeah, it's opportunity. So, I think this was a great conversation we had today. I really hope we can bring more youth into this conversation. And it's that conversation, letting everybody know that each of those 33,000 stories of homelessness is 33,000 individuals in the state of Michigan. And, if you like what you heard today, you enjoyed having Azaria on the conversation, please like and subscribe our podcast. Reach out, go to myhomeless.org, become a member of MICA, and, we do what we do because of that. So
For all of the Azarias and for her work that she's doing, contact us. Let us know if we can highlight something you're doing or if you'd like to see anything. And if you want to give back, please let us know. But the easiest way you can give back is to like and subscribe and become a member of MICA. Thanks, Nick.
thank you.